Okay, we're in Genesis chapter 50, looking at verses 15 through 21. The first question reads, why did the brothers believe Joseph hadn't punished them for what they'd done to him? And the reason is that their father was still living. They assumed now that their father was dead, that now he was going to punish them. And this was the policy of Esau. He had comforted himself, saying that after the mourning for his father was past, he would kill Jacob. And perhaps this was something in their culture that you don't kill your sibling while your parent is alive. But whatever the reason, they assumed that this is why Joseph hadn't killed them, hadn't punished them, hadn't imprisoned them, hadn't made them slaves, or some other way of taking revenge out on them for what they had done to him. The second question, what did they request from him? In verse 17, the latter part reads, now please forgive the sins of the servants of the God of your father. They're asking him for forgiveness. And then they say, the third question is, though they requested this, what status did they expect him to place them in? So they're asking him to forgive them, but then in verse 18, they bow down to him. And then the last part says, they said to him, we are your slaves. So even though they're asking him to forgive him, they're expecting that he'll say, yes, I forgive you, but then make them slaves. And then the next question, what was Joseph's initial response to their request? Even before they bowed down and said they are slaves, the end of verse 17, it says, when their message came to him, Joseph wept. Joseph wept. The question, why do you think he responded this way? Joseph had forgiven his brothers for the evil that they had done for him, for all the time that he had lost, for the time he wasn't able to spend with his father in his formative years, his late teens and throughout all of his 20s, he was without his father. He was without his brother Benjamin, without all the comforts and freedoms of his life in Canaan. They stole this from him. They took this away from him. And despite that, he found it in his heart, by the grace of God, to forgive them and say he would not hold it against them. But they felt that he hadn't forgiven them, but was just maliciously holding on to this grudge and was waiting for his opportunity to avenge himself. It was because of the love of God that he had towards them that he forgave them. But they misinterpreted that love, thinking him to be secretly cherishing evil feelings towards them. And I believe this is what caused them to weep. And also, not only that they misinterpreted his love, but also the fact that they felt that he could be revenged by taking them as his slaves and he didn't need slaves. He was the ruler of one of the mightiest nations in the time. He didn't need extra slaves. They wouldn't have helped them. But also, even if he took them for slaves for the rest of their lives, took the 10 of them as slaves, that could not in any way make up for the evil that had been done to him. And for them to think that putting themselves into a life of servitude would somehow make up for the evil, that also, I believe, is what contributed to why Joseph wept. And this goes to the last question: how can this help us better understand God's forgiveness? God, just like Joseph here, God has forgiven us because of his love for us. And sometimes it's difficult for us to actually realize the significance of that forgiveness, to accept the power of that forgiveness, to understand the genuine, deep, broad love of God that has moved him to forgive us. Secondly, sometimes we have the problem that the brothers of Joseph had, where we underestimate the evil of our sin. Well, what I did wasn't that bad. Maybe I can make up for it by doing this. And I'll tell you myself, sometimes I have that mindset that, well, let me do a few more good things to make up for this bad thing. I wasn't nice to someone, so I'll be nice to a few other people and somehow let that make up for it. Or I skip and don't have my time with God that I need to have. And so, well, I'm going to do this to try and make up for that. No, that's not the way it works. When we do wrong, when we sin, there is no amount of good works that can make up for it. It can't cover it. It can't atone for it. It's not good enough. And when we have that mindset, it's like the mindset of the brothers of Joseph, thinking that we can bring what we did down to the level of something that can be atoned for, that can be made up for by something good. And I believe God also responds as Joseph. He responds with sadness. He responds heartbroken that we would trivialize the sinfulness of our sin. But what this also shows us is the power of the love of God. Even what Joseph's brothers did to him pales in comparison to what we do to God when we do the smallest of sins. That simple act of eating of a forbidden fruit, that sin was so horrible that the only thing that could make up for it was not a life of obedience of Adam or Eve, not a life of perfection by any human. The only thing that could make up for that was the perfect life and the death of the Son of God. That was the only thing to compare to the evil of that simple, seemingly trivial act. And what God is saying is that he, without any accepting of any gifts or any righteousness on our part, he has forgiven us. He has forgiven us. He's put the slate clean. Now, that doesn't leave us then to continue in sin, because we wouldn't expect Joseph's brothers to now continue to treat him harshly and to continue to treat him with the same malice and evil hostility that they treated him with the 20 years or more years earlier. No, because they saw this love, because they received and accepted this forgiveness, then they would treat him with love, with kindness, even with service, in gratitude, showing their response to that love. And this is what God wants from us. Jesus says, if you love me, keep my commandments. Why would you love him? We love him because he first loved us, as 1 John says. We love him because we have seen the love of God in forgiving us of our repeated committing of sins, of transgressing, of turning our deaf ear to his Spirit's pleading voice. He's forgiven us for being selfish, for being proud, for seeking our own indulgence, for seeking what's good for us. He's forgiven us for our evil, and he's not counting it against us. And that is to break our heart and bring us to love him. And then if you love me, Jesus says, you can show it. Here's a way you can show your love: by keeping my commandments. Paul says it this way: the love of Christ, seeing his love poured out for us. And then we respond in that. That love constrains us, or it compels us, it controls us. That's the dominating force that moves us in life. Seeing and feeling and realizing and appreciating the love of God. And it is this love of God that we can hold on to and that we can also show to others.